Now, over the next 3 years, I think you'll see that the right, and I've always argued this, actually do stuff. And that they do practical and lasting stuff when it comes to the environment, while the left just head off down some sort of, oh, I don't know, ideological faddish cul-de-sac and do nothing but raise rates. And the Otago Regional Council is an outstanding example of that. They've employed DEI hiring policies. I kid you not, it's actually part of that. They're very proud of it. DEI hiring policy. They're going to hire on the basis of talent. Are you disabled? Are you Māori? You've got lots of multiple pronouns? Do you come from straitened and unfortunate circumstances? Can you not read and write? You're perfect for the Otago Regional Council. No, seriously, they've got DEI hiring policies. They've got unelected Māori. No, sorry, that's not right. Unelected iwi representatives. Can't have Māori, good God, no. That would dilute the power of local mana whenua. No, we can't have that. But they've got unelected Māori, iwi reps on their policy-making bodies, and a painfully woke and expensive communication policy that no one reads, watches, listens to, or has anything to do with, because it's largely deemed irrelevant to most people who live in Otago and to their daily lives. I mean, it must be dreadful being one of those, 13, 14, 15 communication members and knowing that everything that you do every day disappears into some sort of ether. Oh, no one's listening, no one's watching, no one's reading. All right, anyhow. That has been the past of that particular organisation. But it did over the last 3 years manage to raise rates 48%. So, 48% rates increase over the last 3 years. And it did manage to employ lots more earnest green liberal staff and make countless gestures to make itself feel good, including the one I particularly like when it comes to useless gestures is starting every meeting with a karakia. And there's also, I understand, a staff waiata. And I have to say, there is something deeply excruciating about watching white people stumble over Māori pronunciation and song. That's, I have to say, an exquisite torture all of its own. I say this because the ORC and its council staff, I've always considered, and I said it many times on the hustings, I have to say, represent all that's wrong with white liberalism in New Zealand. They think that adding a few words like mahi, we've got to do the mahi, across the motu, across Aotearoa, makes a difference when it comes to, well, anything. When really it just irritates the crap out of the rest of us and is patronising cultural gibberish at best. Not that Māori's spiritual cultural beliefs aren't important in a practical sense, because the last iteration, for example, and it's still there, hasn't been changed yet. It's going through a review of something called the National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management, and I've only just got to utter those words to Mana Rotawai, and immediately, as I've done now, farmers have come inside, listened to that, and gone, no! And they've either headed outside screaming or headed under the table as if there's some sort of imminent earthquake. Te mana o te wai. Anyhow, it was given prominence, Māori spiritual and cultural beliefs, in te mana o te wai. It actually gave a primacy to them. So it wasn't just that you had to consider them. They were actually considered to be the most important thing, because the water suddenly assumed a supernatural deity process. It was the water is now alive. Oh my God, it's alive. And the wairua, the spiritual life of the water, it only emanates from one particular ethnicity or culture. I don't believe that in any other ethnicity or culture do you look at a river and go, oh my God, there's a living entity. Dear Lord, it's not just water flowing past me. Is there anywhere else in the world? I imagine there might be a few in a deepest, darkest African tribes that might do that, but no, there you go. We've turned it into official policy in this country. So Māori spiritual and cultural beliefs are important, not because they're important of themselves, but they're important because they imbue themselves into our public life in this country. So I'll give you an example of this silliness. This is a classic one. Because Māori, I'm not even going to say that, because the local mana whenua, so the the unelected reps of the local iwi, or the local committee of the local iwi, say that that water has a spiritual aspect. You're not allowed to put sewage into it, treated sewage, right? So what should be coming out of treated sewage plants in this country, and it's generally right in actual fact, should be enough to drink. We don't, because even white people go, I'm not drinking sewage. But if you were desperate, you would, because that's good enough stuff, and you could certainly irrigate with it. So you put it into the rivers because there are no environmental consequences at all. Water with water. Whoop-de-doo. Well, Māori spiritual beliefs under Te Mana o Te Wai, and this is where it all just went mad for the rest of you who don't know, is that suddenly you couldn't do that anymore. Why? Well, because we've got a cultural belief that you shouldn't be mixing waters. Yeah. So you can't do it. You're joking. Well, that's what Te Mana o Te Wai says. It's spiritual, that water. You're not going to have your dirty water that you've come through you and it's been treated and it's okay and it looks and tastes and acts like water. We're not going to. No, you can't do that. You've actually got to now take that stuff that's quite clean now and put it to land. And under Te Mana o Te Wai, and every councillor will have told you, and that's why they every governing body of this organisation actually quite enjoyed the coalition government getting in, was that they were sitting there thinking, shit, and that's exactly the word they used. We are actually going to go have to buy 50, 60, $100 million worth of land on which to put our sewerage, because we're not allowed to put it in the river anymore. Why? Not for environmental reasons, not for scientific reasons, but because our local mana whenua say you may not mix the waters. It offends our cultural and spiritual beliefs. I might add, exactly the same objection they've got to putting dams on rivers. No, can't interfere with the water. Why? Well, because you can't. Offends our Māori spiritual and cultural beliefs. However, if you pay us $2 million a year for the next 50 years, Meridian, we might just let this slide, as happened in the Waitaki Valley. But anyhow, there you go. So, I mean, that was the practical consequence of Māori culture and spiritual beliefs in just one microcosm. And that's one of the reasons why water was going to become, and it's still likely, but is going to become extraordinarily expensive, and the water rates that you would have had imposed across the rest of the country would have been ruinous. Anyhow, there you go. All to do with upsetting the ancestors or something. I don't know. But these nonsenses aren't going away. How many sane and sensible councillors or members of parliament that you might elect to local or central government? They're tenets of faith for the new faith fanatics. The new religion, having despised this colonial supernatural of the Christian churches, the liberals in the public sector woke have embraced Māori spiritualism as its substitute, with no idea that it may mean that many Māori actually don't believe this nativist superstition nonsense either. But it's really, and when you think about it, we sit here and joke about the influence of Muslim imams and their right to expect their religion to be embraced by politicians and policymakers in a place like Pakistan, for example, or deepest, darkest Birmingham. But here we have in our own country, without having to look overseas, the same sort of spiritual imams seeking to impose ruinously expensive spiritual practices upon public policy making in this country, embraced mostly by white local government and government staff. The public sector are the enemies of common sense in this country. And it's not, I mean, and Māori must be sitting there, God, they're taking it seriously. I mean, if I was Māori leader, I'd just go, God, they're taking us all very seriously. We just meant it as a sort of metaphorical way. But no, we'll let's go, and good on them. God, there's a sucker born every moment, and local government's full of them. Anyhow, I say this because up until now, I have to say, I've been relatively sanguine and optimistic about the racial and cultural future of our country.